Welcome, everyone. This is Higher Discourse. This is the show where we talk about the infinite positive possibilities of our shared future and what's holding us back. Now, I had a very specific fourth episode planned, and this is not it. Let's talk about it. So let's talk a little bit about chaos. Obviously, it's been quite some time in between this episode and the previous one. I'm not going to go into every little detail about why. But in general, I think that I do want to talk about the fact that there are lots of things that we want to do in our lives as individuals. There are lots of things we care about, lots of things we have passions for. And so many of those things we have to set aside just because we're busy with essentially chaos management. So for the longest time, this chaos has been quite heavily dictating my schedule. It's been quite heavily dictating my available and free time. And, these are the types of things that could stop us from doing our passions, from following our dreams, from doing what we want to do. And I think one of the things that's kind of gotten me, one of the things that's kind of, I suppose, fooled me in these last months is that I've always kind of waited for the chaos to take a break. I've waited for a lot of the problems and the issues to sort of, give me a break real quick, give me, calm down. And then once I get this chaos dealt with, once I get it fixed, once I, patch all those leaks, then of course, I'll have enough time to do the things that I care about, to follow my dreams and my passions, and to focus my time on what I'd like to focus it on. The reason I share that is because I think a lot of people think the same way. I think a lot of people are in the same situation, this constant chaos and this constant management of that chaos. And they think, well, once the chaos is fixed, once it's all completed, once it's all done, then they'll get to go on and be whoever they'd like to be. They could go and follow their dreams and their passions and their hopes, and they can finally focus their attention elsewhere. At least myself and a lot of the people I know in my personal life end up in that same trap, thinking, oh, well, of course, if I can just fix these problems, if I could just plug these leaks, then everything will be fine. And I could then begin to move on to some higher calling for my life. And then obviously when the trap is set, we fall into it and we just get trapped in endless chaos. It just never ends up stopping. It never ends up coming to that place where it's now peaceful and serene and you can go on to be your ultimate self. This is a trap I don't want to continue to fall into. And I think if there's anything that we have a dream for or a passion for, if there's anything we want out of our lives, I think we get to the point where it's essentially stuck behind a paywall, right? You've got to be able to afford the free time and the sort of lifestyle that lets you do what it is you feel you want to do, what it is you feel you may have been born to do. And I think in so many cases, so many of us are locked behind that paywall. We have to be able to afford to be ourselves, to exercise ourselves, to do the thing that we truly have a passion to do. And I think sometimes when we have so much financial chaos and so many other forms of chaos, so many other things going wrong, it leaves us in a constant state of survival. It leaves us unable to embrace the freedom that allows us to express ourselves. Whatever that expression may be, maybe it's art, maybe it's singing, maybe it's speaking, maybe it's athleticism and games. The tighter and tighter our circumstances squeeze us, the harder it is for us to have any flexibility and mobility. And I think in a lot of ways that ends up crippling us if we allow it to. And I think, for example, this massive gap between this current episode I'm releasing now and the previous episode is a great example of me falling prey to that same chaotic struggle, trying to find the time, trying to find the finances to fix problems, dealing with, mental health issues and family members with mental health issues, managing chaos over and over again, working 6 days a week, and then having that last day available to me to be a father and husband. Again, I don't want to pretend that my chaos is greater than or less than someone else's. It's not a competition. But I think there's something to be said about the distraction of it all, right? Because there's so many things that we as a people, we as a human species can offer each other that we just aren't able to find the time and freedom to do so. We just aren't able to just manifest these things into our lives and into the lives of other people. I say all the time that Beethoven could have never written a single note if he was out on a battlefield struggling for his life from, the beginning to the end of his life. I think if we are constantly in a state of distraction and constantly forced into a state of desperation and survival, I don't think that we'll have the freedom and the time to truly become ourselves, whatever that self may be. And I think that economically, structurally, there are so many things that prevent this exact sort of ascension of the average person who could be the next Einstein. They are just dealing with and managing unrealistic levels of chaos. Einstein could have never contributed what he did if he were in an alley somewhere struggling to find food, struggling to find water, struggling to survive. I think that we aren't even able to develop those parts of ourselves, those parts of our minds and those skills and those talents. We aren't even able to develop them in some cases because we are in that same sort of desperate state of survival. Yes, it may be an economic battlefield for most of us, but it's still a battlefield. It's still the struggle to survive. It's still a preoccupying struggle to survive. And for so many of us, it occupies our thoughts, it occupies our feelings and our emotions. It compromises our mental health and it robs us of who we really are. It robs us of who we could be. It distracts us from being the ultimate version of ourselves, and certainly from contributing whatever that self may be to others. And I think that we need to start a conversation about our own struggles, not in the context of just, therapeutically venting about those struggles, but puzzling over how to overcome them, puzzling over how to conquer that chaos, puzzling over how to defy the chaos and somehow achieve our truest selves as best we can amidst the chaos. I think that could be something that helps us and motivates us to continue finding a way to be the best self we can be despite the chaos. And the value in that is, I think that best self, that best version of you, that best version of me is that much more able to help those around us and contribute to the world at large. So I have this habit. I have a tendency to make these sort of audio diaries, right? I don't necessarily have the free time available to sit down and write things out all the time. I do write things out, but one of the things that I do much more naturally and much more often is speak. So, what I've been doing for years now is, I've been keeping sort of an audio journal, an audio diary where I'll have something on my mind and I'll hit record on a handheld recorder or my phone or whatever's available. And, I'll just fire from the hip, express myself, and talk into the microphone. Now, why do I bring this up? Why do I say this? Well, I bring this up because I realized that might be one of the ways I use to conquer this chaos, right? If I'm working 6 days a week and I'm a husband and father on that other day and sleeping, trying to take care of myself, take care of my family, but I also really want to do this podcast. I also really have a lot of other dreams and passions and things that I'd like to develop this into. So what I've decided to do, since these recordings already exist, I've been making them for years, it makes a lot of sense to go ahead and integrate them somewhat into these episodes. Not necessarily as a permanent new format to this show, but as a way of sort of filling in the gaps, right? There should never be these massive gaps in between episodes just because I'm busy managing chaos, right? I think it makes the most sense to say, okay, well, why don't I just use these already existing bits of audio to go ahead and, integrate them into certain audio diary episodes. So moving forward, what I plan to do with this podcast, I still have proper episodes planned. I still have lots of outlines written. I still have animations I'd like to do for the YouTube channel. There's so many things planned, but the free time is somewhat scarce these days. And so to sort of mitigate that free time scarcity, moving forward, I'll be integrating certain episodes that are just going to be strictly audio diary episodes. Again, it won't be too many episodes. It won't be forever, but it will help fill in some of these gaps. There should never be these large, massive gaps of time in between episodes where nothing is being said. The goal here is for me to sift through my old and recent audio diary recordings and find what I think may be of some value to other people and may serve the purpose of this podcast, which is ultimately a higher discourse. This podcast is something I don't think, even if I were filthy rich and had nothing to do with my life, I don't think this podcast is something I'd ever stop. Because my audio journals, my audio diaries are not something I'll ever stop. So, why not share my thoughts with other people? And so to that end, I think that to conquer the chaos for me, it makes the most sense to just defy that chaos to a certain extent. Go ahead and let some of those things burn for the sake of me following my passion. It doesn't mean that this passion will ever make me, the money that I need to put out those financial fires. It doesn't mean that it'll solve all of those other problems, but it does mean that I will feel a hell of a lot better during the problems, during the chaos, right? There's something to be said about the emotional and sort of psychological benefits of following those passions and being who you are and sort of giving in to your real true self and not allowing your passions to be blocked by a paywall, not allowing your passions to be blocked by a time limitation. And I think that, if we to some extent ignore that chaos and just not give it full and complete control of our time and our schedules and our lives and our thoughts, then we can come out in a much better place concerning our own mental health and also ultimately that thing that we can contribute to our fellow human beings. That could be music. That could be a story, a powerful story that you're writing and you want to be an author, That could be art, right? It could be anything that you are, anything that you want to become, anything you have a passion for. It could be playing games. It could be basketball and athleticism, football. It could be anything, that you have a genuine passion and love for. And then locking that thing behind a paywall, locking that thing behind time limitations. It could be something where, okay, well, all your bills are paid and you've put in the overtime at work, but are you happy? Are you whole? And I think in a lot of cases, when you don't follow your passion, when you betray yourself in that way by giving into that sort of chaos, I think on one hand, you deny yourself the right to be whole and complete as a person. And I think on another hand, you are robbing the rest of the world of who and what you really are and who and what you could help them to be and the contribution you could make, because somebody somewhere is going to find value in what you do. Somebody somewhere is going to be helped or inspired in some way by that art, by that basketball game you played, by that video game you played well. Somebody somewhere is going to be inspired by that book you wrote. And I think that the contribution we could all make to each other when we follow our passions is immeasurable. And it's one of my greatest hopes with this podcast. It's one of my greatest hopes with my efforts to, I guess, share my opinions and my thoughts and my feelings. It's one of my greatest hopes that this will be valuable to somebody, that someone somewhere will get something out of it. If I could find these recordings and find things that I think might be of some value, then I'll post that as an episode. Meanwhile, I'll still be working on the proper episodes when I get the chance, but it means that there shouldn't be some massive gap anymore in between the release of these episodes. Anyway, that's it for now. You can contact me by emailing higherdiscoursepodcast@gmail.com. You can find me on Twitter @higherdiscourse. And other than that, I want to thank you for listening, and I'll see you next time.